You call that a congresswoman? Or a rising star? No, I call that a national mistake. Donald Trump delivered the line straight from his office at Mar-a-Lago, in a video filmed on a humid, still morning, quiet enough that you could hear the soft clink of a crystal glass being set down. He let the words stretch, deliberately, each syllable hanging in the air like a warning before reaching millions of screens. The post hit Truth Social at exactly 7:14 a.m. Just 40 seconds later, MSNBC scrapped its scheduled U.S. market preview and cut to a full-screen red banner. On CNN, the ticker lit up. Trump declares Crockett a national mistake. Demands response from DOJ. 2 minutes after that, Trump reposted a clip of Judge Jeanine Pirro visibly fuming in the Fox News studio. "She better be careful," Pirro snapped. "She's not too bright. You don't talk to the Attorney General like that." Beneath the clip, Trump left a 5-word caption. "Watch this, she's unfit." The message shot like a lightning bolt from Mar-a-Lago to the top floor of the Capitol. House legal advisors immediately began calling one another. Cable news editors dropped their pre-written segments and started rewriting headlines in real time. No official script had been drafted, but everyone already understood. This wasn't something that could be ignored or brushed aside. Moments later, the official White House media team account posted on X, "This isn't politics. This is intimidation on live feed." As Democratic lawmakers huddled to craft a coordinated response, reporters on Capitol Hill felt their phones buzz with a new alert, brief, cryptic, and unmistakably serious. House Oversight Press Room. "I'll be there. Bring questions. No subject line, no name, no campaign branding. Just a time, a place, and the unmistakable tone of someone issuing a summons, not a request." 9:00 a.m. Rayburn House Office Building, Washington, D.C. Room 2274. House Oversight and Reform Committee. The hearing table had been freshly draped in crisp fabric. Press seats were spaced with precision, arranged for optimal camera angles. News networks had already queued up real-time tickers, ready to break whatever came next. Beneath the Fox News feed, a live banner flashed. Awaiting Representative Crockett's response, live. Exactly 1 hour after Trump's statement, every camera in the room turned toward the door on the left. Jasmine Crockett stepped in, dressed in a sharp black suit, her silver-rimmed glasses catching the glare of overhead lights. She didn't need a microphone to command the room. Her entrance alone felt like the opening line of a speech. "I heard what he said." No need to raise her voice. No need to repeat the words. Once was enough to recognize this wasn't the voice of a statesman. It was a spear, thrown straight at the heart of what representation truly means. A black congresswoman, elected by tens of thousands of voters, now labeled by the sitting president as a national mistake. "I'm not here to clap back out of emotion," she said, steady and firm. "I stand before you carrying a contract signed with the trust of my constituents. Not to keep a seat, but to keep my word. Representation isn't an honor. It's a pact, written in the silences that others were once forced to endure. And today, I'm not just reading that pact aloud. I'm enforcing it." A soft sound echoed from stage right, something shifting behind the curtain. A Reuters reporter glanced at their watch. The MSNBC camera pivoted, adjusting 40 degrees. The side door opened. Donald Trump entered. Navy suit, red tie. His expression was unreadable, neither angry nor rehearsed. He walked directly to the podium opposite hers, just 8 paces away. Close enough to share the same frame, yet each stood in a different reality. No announcement, no introduction, no warning, just presence and tension you could cut with a knife. A commentator from NPR leaned in and whispered, "He just turned a press briefing into a live cross-examination. No subpoena needed." Trump gave a subtle nod to the camera broadcasting live on Fox News, then locked eyes with Crockett, like a virtual confrontation had suddenly come to life in the flesh. "A contract? Voter trust?" he said, voice calm but cutting. You talk like you're the moral compass in Washington's desert. But you forget, people don't vote for speeches, they vote for results. And the only thing you've delivered is chaos in hearings and a ratings bump for MSNBC. You can quote statutes. I run the country. He stepped forward, just slightly. And if this is what representation looks like, maybe it's time we redefine what a congresswoman is, before the title turns into something we hand out to whoever talks the most and gets the least done. The room seemed to hold its breath. A few quiet gasps. The camera snapped back to Crockett. She didn't move. She hadn't moved. Still in her original stance, hands pressed flat against the wood surface, like she'd just signed a petition to rewrite the nation's definitions. "The only result I've delivered?" she said, steady and sharp. "I'll let that question sit with the families who saw their children's names removed from deportation lists, because of a letter I signed." Her gaze didn't waver. "And if you really think people don't care about speeches, ask yourself why Congress went silent when I spoke about classified documents stored behind a golf course." She straightened just slightly, her voice cool and resolute. "I don't manage cable networks. But I manage every clause of every bill I vote on. And I know what it means when a president walks past the Constitution just to stand face to face with a member of the legislative branch. That's not a dialogue. That's an institutional breach." Before the last word had even left her lips, CNN's side ticker updated. Crockett. He didn't walk into a press room. He walked into Article 1. Trump leaned in slightly toward his podium, 2 fingers pressing into the edge of the wood, like he was trying to recalibrate the balance of power itself. "You say I walked past the Constitution? Excuse me, Congresswoman Crockett. I'm the one who redrew America's energy map, rebuilt our borders, and shut down dozens of pointless hearings. And you? You stand here like some 21st century legal scholar, but really you're just reading last night's MSNBC notes. You accuse, you interpret, you perform, but every word you speak has just enough edge to make prime time, not enough clarity to make law. I don't need to hold a microphone. I've got voters, and they don't elect great orators. They elect winners." Crockett kept her expression steady. She shifted slightly, aligning herself with Trump, as if the frame itself had formed line of confrontation. "If winning means counting FBI visits and still standing here delivering lectures on justice, then sure, you're winning big. You say I perform, but your DOJ picks include a man found guilty of ethical violations, another who peddled election lies, and one, Kash Patel, who's never been an FBI agent yet, was nominated by you to lead the Bureau. I may not redraw energy maps, but at least I don't leak them to foreign donors and pretend it's a domestic initiative." Trump pressed his lips, barely, but the press corps picked up on the shift like it was a tactical pivot. He cut in, "Kash Patel served America. You serve TikTok clips. And if I'm as dangerous as you say, then why is DOJ still a stack of paperwork? Why has the FBI not filed a single charge after 3 years of folks like you demanding investigations?" Crockett let out a faint laugh, not to deflect, but like she'd been waiting for this moment to land her line. "I don't need the FBI to speak for me. I just need one man deported against a federal court order. Do you remember Eduardo Reyes, a man removed from this country despite a standing stay of removal? A man who's not here to watch your live streams? A man whose attorney told the truth and got demoted by the same DOJ you turned into a media instrument? If you want to know why I'm still standing here, it's because some people never got the chance to walk through these doors." MSNBC ticker instantly rolled. Crockett evokes Reyes. "I don't speak for the survivors. I speak for the erased." Trump leaned back against the podium, arms crossed. "You're romanticizing a tragedy to cover up the fact that no actual wrongdoing has been proven. Not by me, not by Patel, and definitely not by Jeanine Pirro. I brought Judge Jeanine into this because she says what people like you avoid. And that video, that's not a threat. That's a reaction. The real danger here isn't a president posting a clip. It's a legislator turning every forum into a launch pad for personal ambition. Crockett stepped half a pace forward, marking the line between rhetoric and reality. You call that a reaction? That's laughable. So let me ask you, how do you define a reaction? Is it when a former president hits share on a video of a woman screaming that, "I'm not smart enough, not qualified enough, and shouldn't speak to the Attorney General"? A reaction is reflex. What you did was calculated. That's a campaign. And you know that well, because you ran an entire political media empire. The truth is, no one produced that video but you. No one stamped unfit under my name but your account. So don't call it a reaction when it was your finger on the start button. Trump raised his hand, voice cutting in just before her final word. And you? You're launching your own beatification ceremony, scripted and self-directed. They didn't call you a national mistake because of one video. They said it because every hearing you touch turns into a soundstage for combat, not legislation. You brought up my media empire? Fine. Here's the truth. At least my empire had real viewers. What you did today was deliver a speech crafted from manufactured outrage, just to survive another cycle in the trending tab. A few reporters tugged on their cameramen's sleeves, signaling, "Hold the frame." This is the moment. MSNBC added another ticker. Crockett v. Trump. Tension peaks on live feed. Crockett narrowed her eyes but didn't miss a beat. You're wrong. I don't exist on trending tabs. I exist in legal records. The last time I sat with a group of voters in Dallas, they didn't ask how many views I had. They asked why their husbands were still flagged on a domestic watch list. Just because they donated $5 to a campaign you didn't like. You say your empire had real viewers? I won't deny it. There were real viewers, real signals, real airwaves, and real subpoenas. Trump smirked, about to respond, but Crockett stepped in before he could. And before you call this performance again, let me remind you, even the best actors in Hollywood need a script. Me, I work with the law. For the first time that day, Trump shifted his stance. The law you claim to defend? That's the same system that launched investigations and came back with nothing. No indictment, no conviction, just TV accusations and hashtags tossed around like weapons. You say I use media as a political tool? You're right. But at least I don't turn every on-camera appearance into a pre-cut performance, where every line is made for a clip and every answer is a campaign launch. Crockett tilted her head slightly, just enough to let the pause settle. You think what I'm doing is a talk show, probably because you're used to backroom briefings. But this isn't a show. This is a response. And what bothers you most is that you don't control who's holding the mic. Trump smiled, but his eyes didn't. He tapped his index finger along the edge of the table like marking each statement he planned to flip. And that, I suppose, is why you think you belong in this room. Because you get to ask the questions I haven't screened. But here's what you forget. Asking the questions doesn't make you a visionary. It just makes you the loudest person in the room. And America doesn't need noisemakers. It needs coordinators. People who understand that systems don't run on personal attacks, but on vision that reaches beyond political scar tissue. I don't care who you are in a 60-second viral clip. I care who you'll be 10 years from now, when the cheering stops, the cameras fold, and the people who once praised you start asking about real results. Crockett nodded, not in agreement, but like someone who had been waiting for the right beat to rise above. Real results? Then let me give you one. I met a family in Little Rock, a mother who had to max out a credit card to buy insulin off plan because the state line you backed slashed her prescription subsidy. You talk about global vision, but I'm talking about a father collapsing in front of a factory door after working 37 straight days and still falling short on the electric bill. Vision is great, but it doesn't save anyone if the person holding it stands too far above to see the face of someone trying to survive. Trump let out a loud laugh, the first of the briefing, almost guttural. And that right there is exactly why you're unfit for this job. You string together personal anecdotes and try to pass them off as systemic proof. That's the populist playbook. I've been there. I've shaken hands with Asian leaders, negotiated with Europe, cut taxes at home. While I created jobs, you created viral clips. While I rewrote laws, you rewrote captions. Crockett's eyes didn't flinch or drift. They locked his words in, like panes of political glass she'd seen too many times before. I'm not denying you shook hands with world leaders. I just know who you shook hands with and which of them are under investigation. You call me a populist, but you're the one who said I alone can fix it. What about people like me? I don't promise to fix everything. I just promise not to look away when real people collapse outside government doors. You win the cameras, but I'm not sure you win the consequences. She tilted her head slightly toward the reporters, not to find the lens, but as if asking the entire room, what exactly are we watching? Because consequences don't come from courtrooms. They come from the person who once cast a ballot and now has to choose between paying rent or filling a prescription. Because of a law you rolled back. And if you believe every citizen's failure is just collateral for a campaign slogan, then maybe I shouldn't be worried about your power, but about this country's memory. Trump cut in immediately. The country's memory. You talk like you're writing the history books. You look at every invoice, every individual, every leak, and you pin it all on me. But I create jobs, passed tax reform, ran an economy the world had to look at. And you? You see faults everywhere. You see victims in every frame. You built a political identity out of emotion, not execution. Crockett jumped in, not waiting this time. And you built yours on the illusion of power. I see the failures because I walk through the places you only drive past in a motorcade with triple-layered glass. I see the victims because I don't stand behind a fence of pre-screened media questions. Execution. I don't need a tax chart to know where the money landed. I just need to walk into a community bankruptcy office, where the first 40 files all come from workers at a plant you promised to reopen. Trump leaned forward, his gaze pressing down on every word, scanning for the weakest seam. I made that promise because I believe in American industry. But you, what do you believe in? In making people feel broken so you can bulldoze through with bloated spending bills? Or do you believe in accusing every man in power, turning every critic into fuel for your political persona? Crockett tightened two fingers slightly as if closing an invisible bracket in her mind. She replied slowly, but each word landed where something had been trying to hide. I believe in one thing, that there are questions worth asking, even when they make the person in power uncomfortable. I believe this country isn't a chessboard where every move is a media tactic, but a living map where one wrong step can cost someone a home, a hospital visit, or their child's school record. And I believe, if a leader fears being questioned, that person shouldn't lead one more day. A pause. Not because anyone ran out of words, but because someone had heard enough. Adam Schiff placed his folder on the table. He'd been there since the start. Quiet, like the margin of a statute waiting to be cited at the right time. And if I may follow that, I'll clarify this. Within 48 hours of that threatening video being posted and going viral, 2 internal records tied to the deportation stay policy were wiped from the DOJ reporting system. No signature authorized the deletion. But IP logs don't lie. Trump didn't look at Schiff. His eyes stayed locked on Crockett, but his voice aimed behind her. So now the lawmakers want the mic? I'm hearing 2 people stage a show. One tells the story, the other brings the evidence. But both of you are dancing around what the public actually wants to know. Have I committed a crime? Has there been a single legal conclusion? Schiff answered without glancing at his papers. Legal conclusions take time, but what doesn't is recognizing when power is being used not to protect the country, but to punish those who refuse to bow. Crockett followed up. You want a conclusion? Fine. Here's one. A man who once swore an oath to uphold the Constitution, but now calls a duly elected congresswoman a national mistake. Doesn't need a court ruling. That man has already written his own affidavit. Trump turned sharply toward Schiff. All right, Adam. If you want me condemned for sharing a video, then I've got a question for you. How many hearings? How many reports? That all end with the word concern. And as for you, Congresswoman Crockett, if you want to be a defender of democracy, then maybe stop filling the gaps in your argument with raw emotion. Schiff lowered his voice, not as a rebuttal, but as if dropping an entire legal framework into place. Emotion is not a verdict, but it is the starting point for every question that demands to be asked. And we don't question out of hatred. We question because history remembers. Crockett looked directly at Trump. I don't need emotion to prop up a case. I have enough facts to start the question, enough signatures to launch an inquiry, and enough constituents to know I'm not allowed to bow, even if I don't win. Trump nodded, as if spotting a crack he might wedge open. You talk like you're standing in a moral courtroom. But this is a press briefing, not a cathedral. And what you're staging is a trial without a jury. Just cameras. I didn't share Judge Janine's video because she was harsh. I shared it because she said what millions of people are thinking, that you're trying to turn race and gender into untouchable privileges. And if every time you're challenged, you call it a threat, then maybe the problem isn't the video. Maybe it's your threshold for discomfort. Crockett didn't look at him. She fixed her gaze on a live camera to the left, as if her words weren't meant for him alone. I don't need privilege. I need rightful standing. And if you call it debate when a video launches personal attacks, mocks intellect, and denies someone's legitimacy to serve, then sorry, that's not a debate. That's a coded message for media violence. You used one woman's voice to hit another and then pretended your hands were clean. That's not strategy. That's a pattern. Schiff stepped in like someone who'd seen the whole case play out and was flipping to the appendix on cue. And when that pattern is replicated across mainstream platforms, the fallout isn't just emotional. They call us populace, but it's them who've turned the architecture of investigation into reality television. And if anyone claims no indictment means no wrongdoing, let's remind them. History doesn't wait for a subpoena to speak. Trump crossed his arms, his voice steady, but now tinged with disdain. And history isn't written in hashtags. I'm here because I won an election. You, Congresswoman Crockett, you won a few hearts. But sadly, America isn't built on sentiment. Crockett stepped fully to the side, the ceiling light catching the edge of her silver frames. America isn't built on sentiment, agreed. But it also isn't sustained by the denial of those who think they're untouchable just because they're standing under the spotlight of a media empire. I'm not waiting for history to write my name. I'm waiting for it to stop repeating old mistakes. As her words ended, MSNBC's split screen kicked in immediately. One side held the live shot, Crockett and Trump locked in confrontation. The other showed an archived image of Eduardo Reyes, clipped from a hearing 2 years prior. A young man in a white shirt, round glasses, a soft but steady voice, recounting what it felt like to be pulled from his bed at 3 a.m. and forced onto a flight out of the U.S., despite a federal court's active stay on his deportation. I told the officer there's been a mistake. He said no, there's been a decision. The MSNBC political correspondent froze mid-analysis. The question is no longer who made the mistake, but why the system moves as if a president's signature outweighs a court's ruling. Below the ticker, a leaked line appeared. DOJ internal logs confirm his file was cleared for removal. 6 hours after Trump media post. The broadcast cut back to the hearing. Schiff looked at Crockett, no words, just a glance. Trump remained upright, but for the first time the light no longer hit him evenly. Only a skewed shadow stretched across the backdrop behind him. Schiff spoke. No one waits for history to record their name, but sometimes history begins with the name of someone erased from the record, and today that name is appearing across the country, not because he won a case, but because someone refused to stay silent. Trump struck back, one final time, in the style most characteristic of him, refusing to back down, but no longer advancing either. If I'm the mistake of history, like you all say, then at least I was strong enough to make history say my name again. As for Reyes, I didn't sign his deportation order, and I sure didn't write MSNBC's headline. But one thing I do know, no one stays in this country just because they were labeled a victim, or because there's a camera rolling at the Capitol. As Trump's last sentence landed, CNN abruptly cut away from the live studio. In its place, a black and white data screen filled the frame. Title in bold, DOJ Removal Log, Internal Trigger Review, 2022. A few seconds of silence. Then the MSNBC anchor looked up from a stack of documents. We've just confirmed the processing code for Eduardo Reyes's file, case number 17B09234, was reactivated just 6 hours after the president's account shared that related video. For the first time all day, the red ticker ran with the word confirmed. DOJ confirms time-stamped link between Trump post and Reyes's file purge. Over at Fox News, the panel's rhythm shattered. A producer whispered into the studio mic, "I think we need to double-check the reference feed for the 800 p.m. segment." We aired a cropped still without matching it to the log outside the hatch. Reyes record began trending. Over 40,000 mentions in just 15 minutes. A verified account from the American Bar Association posted, "A man deported against a standing order. A file deleted after a video. We don't need a ruling. We have the timeline." MSNBC's sub-ticker surfaced with a closing line. Low, steady, justice delayed, but not denied. Crockett's voice softened, as if shedding the last layers of political armor and speaking instead to something purer. A country still wanting to believe in fairness. He's no longer here, but his name didn't stay behind. It became the compass for those once erased from the legal map. We don't need a savior standing on stage. We need those willing to step down, to bow their heads and listen, when cries for help can't pierce the media firewall. And we need those strong enough to stay standing, exactly when silence becomes the easiest thing to applaud. She stopped speaking, leaving the ending to someone who never got the chance to speak for himself. A faint breeze slipped through the side door, lifting the hem of a smoke-gray curtain. The evening light angled through the tall glass window, casting a pale golden band across the wooden table, stretching all the way to where Trump still stood. For the first time since the hearing began, his shadow no longer hugged the podium. It peeled away, skewed, stretching along the edge of the aisle, as if even the weight of his presence was beginning to pull away from the map of power he once authored. Himself a Fox News producer, removed his earpiece, folded up the segment rundown, and stood. A CNN reporter caught off guard, scribbled in the corner of a notepad, "This isn't a broadcast. This is a turning point." Trump remained in place, spine straight, but his gaze had shifted. He scanned each camera lens, the familiar decisiveness in his eyes now replaced with something else. A pause where once reliable reactions no longer worked. He turned toward the Fox press row, where the main camera was slowly panning back toward the control desk. No one met his eyes. At the far end of the room, a cameraman folded his tripod and pointed the lens toward the door. Trump gripped the edge of the podium, not to strike back, but as if trying to anchor himself inside a frame that was moving on without him. For a man who had once treated every share as a sign of dominance, this moment, when every camera turned away, became the loudest goodbye of all. Crockett didn't look away. She leaned forward, opened her folder, and drew out a single sheet. A copy of the deportation order bearing Eduardo Reyes's name with a green ink stamp still smudged from the day it was signed. A handwritten note crossed the bottom corner. The penmanship of a DOJ lawyer since reassigned for unauthorized commentary. She placed the paper flat in the center of the table where the light still hit it. Not as evidence. Not to hand it over, but simply to leave it there. As if justice didn't need a proclamation, only a rightful place to return to. MSNBC's split screen turned black, white letters fading in. She didn't win with outrage. She redefined representation with one act, returning a name to where it belongs. On Twitter, the trending bar shifted. Reyes's record gave way to "Erase No More." On PBS, a policy analyst read slowly, "A name once deleted from the system, a file erased under political pressure, but today a member of Congress brought them back, not with power, but with a promise that never went missing." Trump released the edge of the podium and walked slowly toward the right side door. Not toward an exit, but as if leaving a place of rhetoric, a place where he once believed volume could substitute for principle. His shadow stretched across the polished stone floor, split by the ceiling lights. No longer a single form, but fragmented like a power map undone by the very backlash he failed to command. Crockett remained still, eyes forward. Only her presence spoke, clear enough for everyone in the room to understand. Not every victory comes from the comeback. Some victories come from holding your ground, even when no one claps. A journalist from The Atlantic wrote the final line in his notebook. "No one is a mistake if they're the reason justice found its way back." Adam Schiff stepped beside Crockett. No words were spoken. The frame no longer needed sound. A lawmaker, a representative, and a name once erased now standing together, not to declare victory, but to prove that justice never abandons those who stay with the truth. At the far end of the chamber, a young intern bent to pick up a fallen nameplate. They wiped the edge gently, then placed it back on the desk in front. The letters were sharp, unscathed. Jasmine Crockett, Representative. No one left the room right away, but everyone stood, not because a bell rang, but because something had just ended, the right way. C-SPAN's final frame lingered on the long wooden table. No microphones, no more debate. Just one deportation order, once forced into deletion, now present again, like a footnote from history, written back in by the hand of a representative.